I've been singing that song, "We Get There Together, or We Never Get There at All," nonstop in my head since I got back from Minnesota where I learned it, so you're welcome. We share one another's earworms. And this is what Love the JetPeg has to share with us today. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform, change, and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Ooh, for those of us who struggle with perfectionism, it's right there. It's never complete, never perfect, always changing. As I said, I've been asked many times, since it took a few weeks, it just didn't really fit into the worship schedule, for me to be able to report to all of you about what was really a powerful experience of going to Minneapolis. It all began on January 16th when an organization, they say they're not an organization, a loose affiliation of organizations called March, Multi-Faith Anti-Racist Change and Healing in Minnesota, put out a call. They said 1 week from now there is going to be a day of action, organized not just by them, by many, 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 many groups in the Twin Cities and beyond. There's going to be a day of action here. People are going to shut their businesses, leave school and work, and march for immigration justice and to get ICE out of our community and protect our democracy. They said, clergy colleagues, come be with us. They put out that call, as I said, on Friday, January 16th, for an event that was a week from that day. In fact, you needed to be there by Thursday, bright and early, to be part of an all-day training if you were to participate with March the next day. They expected a few hundred people to respond, and they had to cap registration when it got to 1,200. That's as many people, right? They kept saying, where can we meet? And they found that the Westminster Presbyterian Church, a large downtown church, said they could turn over their space, and their sanctuary is very large. And they said, that's as many people as we can have in there and talk to and train at once, 1,200, so I'm sorry. Then they turned away, I don't know how many, a few hundred who went and met at another church and trained themselves for the day of action. It was amazing. I don't know how many were Unitarian Universalists, but a couple hundred, I think. So some of the things I did were the training on community building, learning that song and so many others, singing together, hearing one another's experiences, learning about the history of noncompliance with authoritarian governments. That was on Thursday. As I drove around, I met some people who were following ICE. That was a powerful experience to hear about their experiences, getting in a car and patrolling around, and if they saw ICE in action, following that car and what followed. I accompanied the action at the airport that maybe you heard of, where 98 clergy were arrested after an act of civil disobedience at the airport, from which so many people, about 2,000 we think, although there are no official counts, up to that point in January, the first 23 days of January, had been sent out of that airport. I was accompanying people because the organizers found that as they organized as quickly as they could this event that had not even had a shape a week before, they said, we're not sure we can guarantee legal representation for people who are from out of state, so we would ask you not to risk arrest. Although, as they kept repeating, we have a rogue law enforcement agency here. We can promise you nothing. We can't promise you won't get arrested. We can't promise you that you're safe. So I was one of a few hundred people who accompanied that 100 at the airport. And on Friday, I got to go sing. Target is headquartered there, and they sang, hundreds of clergy sang at the flagship Target store. It's got this great big 2-story atrium, and so when you sing in that atrium, people hear you all over the department store. And then went on the march, of course. And last but not least, accepted dinner and a prayer vigil at First Universalist in Minneapolis to close out our time together. Powerful, powerful service. The message that came through to me over and over again from the time we started singing that song, Up and Adam and singing, no one is getting left behind, was solidarity. Solidarity. That song acknowledging from the beginning that our social change movements have sometimes left people behind. We haven't always made sure that everybody is included. You have to wait, that's too extreme. We're not ready for this. And so this time we say we're not leaving anyone behind. There was the solidarity of the coalition right away. When they gathered us together, people of many, many faiths, they said, we are here together because we are united in what we are asking to get ICE out of this community, out of all of our communities, restore our democracy, protect our immigrant neighbors. We are different from one another in many important ways. There was the theological diversity, of course. And then they said, there are issues, important issues, on which we radically disagree. They didn't name them, but we could all think. We don't all agree on Israel and Palestine. We don't all agree on abortion. We don't all agree on LGBT issues. We are gathered here because we are united about this. Such a beautiful job of not denying our differences, not even saying you have to set them aside, just saying we are united to do this. There was a solidarity between Minneapolis and the people outside the city and outside the Twin Cities and outside the state of Minnesota. There was the promise, explicit and implicit, that that solidarity would be reciprocated, that people there were so grateful to us for being there, grateful to all the communities we represented, and that they were promising to support us when we needed it, including via this training. Over and over again, they said, this is a test case. What happens here in Minneapolis, the government is watching, and what happens here will govern what they do next in all of your communities. It will happen elsewhere. Of course, it already has, although not with the intensity that it has come upon Minneapolis. And they said, this training is something you can take back, and you can call us when it comes to you and say, help us. How did you do this thing? I felt the solidarity when I declared that I was coming here, coming to Minneapolis, and the people of this congregation came pouring forth. How can we give you money? Can we give you warm clothes? They were an absolute lifesaver, I want to tell you. The only thing I was as scared of as ice was the cold, and it was fine. It was fine because I was so warmly dressed. And also all the good wishes, knowing people were lighting the chalice and gathered here on Friday when we were all marching down the streets of Minneapolis, and knowing that we were in everybody's hearts. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. Solidarity. I experienced the solidarity before I went of those who were going and those who weren't able to go. That there was no sense of hierarchy. A lot of people were said, I hear this call, it seems so important to me, and I don't know what I'm to do because I'm taking care of young children, or I have asthma and I cannot go into below 0 temperatures. Not to mention, as I mentioned to them, tear gas, not good for any lungs, but certainly not ones that are prone to asthma. And everybody affirmed, we're all one. You're doing what you need to do. Send money if you can. Take care of your children. Take care of your congregation. Preach on Sunday. Everybody has a part to play, and none is more important than the others. Solidarity. And then most of all, the solidarity between native-born citizens and immigrants of all kinds. People who've lived here for years and are now citizens, people who have green cards, people who have run out their visas or never had one, and especially brown and black people who, face it, are the immigrants who are being targeted. This administration would like to have more people from Norway. So that was so powerful, because what a fascist or would-be authoritarian government tries to do is divide people. And it does that typically by choosing scapegoats. The scapegoats can vary depending on the place and time. They can be Jews, they can be Muslims, they can be people of this ethnicity or nationality or that ethnicity or nationality. Of course, they can be people of different races. And this particular authoritarian government has chosen to pick on trans and non-binary people and immigrants, black and brown immigrants, and people who look like them, since we know that people with a perfect legal right to be here are also being swept up by ICE. That's the wedge. That's what they do. And I think they picked on immigrants with deep confidence that white native citizens, native-born citizens, would say, okay, take them, just don't bother us. And in Minnesota, it ain't working. People are saying over and over again, don't take my neighbor. Don't mess with my neighbor. Don't deport my neighbor. Holding up the signs with the pictures of those who have been disappeared, killed, arrested, and released. So I could go on and on about a lot of lessons that I learned there, and I don't have time. I don't have time to tell you all the organizing lessons. I just want to pull out one that so much of what they've built on there in the Twin Cities is mutual aid. Asking the people who are most affected, what do you need? And people saying, we are hiding in our houses. We are scared to take our children to school. We'll take our children to school. Can we do that for you? And they take the children to school. I can't make it to my doctor's appointment. Okay, how can we help you medically? There was a church somewhere in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, that had a makeshift doctor's office with a regular examining table in the basement, so that if people ventured out to church or got rides to church, they could have their doctor's appointment then and there. And we'll run and get you your prescriptions, we'll get you your groceries, we'll bring you food. This is how they built this solidarity. And it didn't happen overnight. Lots more to say about that. I'd love to give a whole sermon on the difference between symbolic action and non-compliance or non-cooperation, but maybe I'll do it in a future sermon or Resisting Fascism Together class, because, I've got all day, but you probably don't. But I do want to say a couple things about the importance of faith community leadership, because you're all part of it too. They called to clergy, and as I said, 1,200, 1,500 came from outside the Twin Cities. So one thing is, there's a lot of tension between liberal, progressive organizing, secular organizations, and the faith communities. There's a lot of mistrust, for good reason, by people in secular organizations of faith communities. They see us as either proselytizing, like we're only going to participate if we get to win them over and bring them to church, or the mosque or whatever. And there's a very strong association in our mind because of Christian nationalism, because of the moral majority and all those things going back, that religion is for the right wing. So it's really, really powerful to show with our bodies and our presence and our songs. We are part of a long and powerful history of progressive religious leadership for justice and change. The right-wing religion does not have a corner on this. Going back to abolition, where again, people, I mean before abolition, but just to give an example in this country, again, people have a bitter awareness that many people used religion, quoting passages in the Bible, as justification for slavery. It's true. It's absolutely true. And much of the abolition movement was powered by people's religion. People saying, I don't oppose slavery in spite of my religion. I oppose slavery because of my religion. And we were there doing the same thing as the abolition movement did, as the movement for mental health care, and the Catholic worker movement, and the labor movement, and civil rights in the 50s and 60s, and the activism against the Vietnam War, and for women's rights, and for LGBT rights, people saying more and more clearly, I don't do this in spite of my religious beliefs, my religious teaching. I do it because of my faith community. And people really, really need to hear that. I saw it at the airport there when 98 of my colleagues, Lutherans, Unitarian Universalists, Episcopalians, you name it, were lined up, ready to be arrested, bearing signs with the pictures and names of the people who had been taken away, praying their prayers. I heard in the crowd, as I said, this crowd was just a whole bunch of people who just showed up. They knew there was going to be an action there. They showed up to be supportive and to see what was going on and to stand for ICE to get out. So we're all there with our stoles, even though we're not getting arrested, those of us who are just there in support. And I hear in the crowd somebody saying, it's nice to see clergy here doing this. This is really great. And the person that they said it to apparently was also a clergy person. He said, yeah, I'm one of them. I'm a clergy person too. Really? I said, me too. He said, yeah, there are lots of us here. And there was a tone of surprise and gratitude. And I thought, if nothing else comes out of this, then that people of the Twin Cities realize that there is a whole cadre of faith communities and the leaders that they sent to this action out in front. That will be enough. So I'm going to try to get personal and not cry. I don't want to get dramatic. It seems especially dramatic after the fact when I came home safe and sound. And I was a little scared. I didn't tell my family this until afterwards, but I did a couple things to put my affairs in order before I left. And one of them was very personal. Every year I write a letter to my daughter on her birthday. I deliver it to her on her birthday. Her birthday's in March, and so usually around the end of February, around about now, I would be putting my thoughts together and telling her usually the things I've observed in the previous year and how she's changing and how much I love her and what I admire about her. I thought I'd better do that now. And I kept putting it off. So Friday morning, before I went to the airport action, which is where I was really nervous, is ICE going to show up? They didn't, fortunately. Are they going to be swinging truncheons, spraying pepper spray at the people who are just gathered there, who aren't even doing anything to counter them? Who knows? And she was scared. She told me she was. She wished I would just stay home. So I got up early Friday so I could write this letter just in my journal where she would see it, just in case. And I told her all the things I love about her and admire about her and have noticed since her last birthday. And I also took the opportunity to tell her why I was there. And although I didn't think about this word as a personal or spiritual word, I recognized I was seeing it in all those expressions of solidarity. Solidarity, a very political word, solidarity forever. About coalitions and working together and standing together to make a change. But all my life, I told Indigo, I've just felt strongly connected to everybody everywhere. Knowing that there's a child being trafficked in a hotel room in Bangkok can disturb my sleep. Or at a country club in Florida. And I've had to find ways to put up barriers between myself and those thoughts so that I can sleep. And try not to build them too strongly because I want to know that connection. I want to feel it always. So here's what I got from the people who were gathering there. Marching with their signs. Minnesota nice, but expletive ice. And over again, on funny signs, on poignant signs, on profane signs, saying, don't mess with my neighbor. And I realized that's an expression of solidarity. And it's also, trust a minister, a theological word, a profoundly religious word. We are neighbors. And just as the 1,200 of us gathered knew and could quote from our various traditions, we are told to love our neighbors as ourselves, to whatever is hateful unto us, to not do unto our neighbors, that we are all neighbors. Not just the people we live by, close by, but the ones far away. Not just the ones we like, but the ones we dislike and fear. Everybody. Regardless of their legal status, regardless of whether they are protecting themselves from the pepper spray or spraying it. Everybody, our neighbor. So I made that connection. Oh, solidarity means I'm with my neighbor. You can't divide us from each other. We are neighbors. And if that's the theological word for it, the emotional word, the spiritual word for it is, what's your name again? Love. I told Indigo, I'm sorry if this hurts you, but as soon as I heard about this, I knew I had to go. I knew that's where I belonged. If I could make it, I was going to go. Because I feel that connection. And then when I was there, I recognized, oh, they're telling me this solidarity among us that is stronger than everything that tries to drive us apart, as long as we just remember we are neighbors. That is the voice of love. So I said, I know you're scared I'm here. The reason you love me, the reason I'm the mama that I am, that's the reason I had to be here. I hope it'll be okay. Fortunately, it was. I want to close on just one more thought. I think that song has been with me so much because it's so singable and beautiful and energetic, and reminds me of singing together 1,200 strong and then singing in the streets and singing in Target. We can do that here too. It'll really annoy them. Maybe it'll make them pressure their headquarters to change things. But stay tuned. We're going to do that. But that no one is getting left behind. We get there together or never get there at all. That's not a threat. It's not even a promise. It's a fact. We can't get where we're going alone. We get there together or we're not there yet. We've never been there yet. But, as we said, openness to change is fundamental to our heritage. We're never complete. We're never perfect. We just keep trying to do it again and again. Try to know who our neighbors are, because it's a fact. We get there together, or we never get there at all. Thank you all for the tremendous solidarity you showed in helping me be there, and no, I was not there alone.